Hello, welcome to JavaScript tutorial, chapter 15, part 1, JavaScript Scope, Global Scope, brought to you by Ankpro Technologies. My name is Harish. In this session, we are going to learn about the scope in JavaScript. So, scope in JavaScript, it defines accessibility of variables, objects, and functions. So, there are two types of scope in JavaScript. One is the global scope and the other one is local scope. First, let me make you understand what is global scope. Keep in mind, variables declared outside of any function, they become global variables, and that type of scoping a variable is called global scope, in the sense that variable is accessible anywhere throughout your program. That type of scoping a variable, okay, is called global scope. And coming to local scope, variables declared inside any function with var keyword are called local variables. And keep in mind that variable declared with var keyword inside the function can be accessible only within that function but not outside the function. So that function is locally accessible within that function, not anywhere outside the function. Okay, that type of scoping a variable is called local scope. Okay, and in this session we are going to learn about the global scope. As we learned in the earlier session, in the last slide, like variables declared outside of any function become the global variables. So global variables can be accessed and modified from any function. So to understand the global scope and the example of global variable very easily, I have a code snippet present here. You can observe very clearly. Like I have a variable called user and the value attached to it or stored in it is called ram. Okay, and I have two methods here, functions here. Okay, the first function name is modify username and this is show username. First, let me make you understand what is the show username function going to do. It's just going to print the value present in the variable user. Okay, you can observe very clearly. So you can observe, first what I'm doing is I'm just alerting the user variable, so the output I'll get it as ram. Okay, next I'm calling modify username function. So this modify username function, what is the work it's doing here right now? It's accessing this variable user variable inside this function, and it's changing the value of user variable from ram to sham. So now when I do modify username, now the value of user variable has changed to sham. So now when I call show username function, we will get the output as sham. Why? Because this user variable is global variable and the value of user variable can be altered anywhere inside your program. Okay, that's the meaning of this global scope. Okay, and this user variable is accessible anywhere within the script tag. Okay, now let me show you a demo of this. It's very simple. Now let me jump here, and here is my HTML page and I've also body tags ready. Let me add a script tag. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable called user and the value stored here is Tom. Okay, and now I'll define two functions. One is modify user name what this modify username is going to do is going to access this user variable inside this and it's going to change the value to sham. Okay, now let me create another method and the method name is modify username show username. Okay, here we are just alerting that user. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll just alert the user variable. To the alert function, I'm passing this user variable, so the value present in this user variable is Tom. So right now we'll get the Tom in the pop-up window. Now I have to navigate to the folder where I saved this page. So here is that folder, and when I double click on that, it pushes this page to the browser, and there we'll get the output as you can observe very clearly. Okay, Let me take it aside. Okay, here we're getting the output as Tom. Okay, and let me expand it. Just wait for a while. Now you can observe, I'll refresh again. We will get the output as Tom. Okay, why? Because we are passing this variable inside the alert function. This alert function just pushes the value present in the user variable in the pop-up window, so we'll get the output as Tom. Now what I'll do is, okay, I'll call this modify username function. So in this modify username function, what we are trying to do is we are trying to change the value of the user variable from Tom to Sham. Okay, now I'll call that modify username. Okay, now I'll alert. Now I'll call show username method. Okay, now we will get the output as Sham. Why? Because in the modify username method, I'm trying to change the value of user from Tom to Sham. So here that work is done, and later function show username, what it's doing is it just printing the value present in the user variable. Right now we have the value Sham, so it's alerting that in the pop-up window. Let me go back and let me refresh. You can observe we are getting Tom, and later the value is changed with the help of modify username function from Tom to Sham, so we're getting that output. Okay, I hope you understood like what do you mean by global scope. And here the variable user is a global variable, and the value of this can be changed anywhere within the script tag, within this scope. Okay, I hope you understood this. It's very simple. Now let me go back to the presentation, and here this is another important point you have to keep in mind about the global scope. Please note that variables declared inside a function without var keyword also become global variables. Okay, now to understand it very clearly, okay, let me make you understand first what is local scope. Okay, variables declared inside any function with var keyword are called local variables. But here you can observe very clearly, here we have a function, and inside the function we have a variable called user, but it is not defined with the var keyword. So now, okay, this line explains the meaning of this function. Please note that the variables declared inside a function, okay, without var keyword, here we are not defined a variable user with the var keyword, they also become global variables, in the sense the value of this user variable present inside this function can be changed anywhere within the scope of the script tag. So let me show you. It's very simple. Now I'll just remove this. Now I'll go back to my presentation. Yes, instead of modify username, let me make it as create username. Create username, and the value is Sham, and I wanted the other one, the modify username. So I want to create another function. Modify username. Here I'll check like if user variable is present, then change the value of user to, okay, Tom. Control S. Now you can observe very clearly what I've done is I've changed the in the modify username, I'm changing the value of this user variable which is present inside this function. But keep in mind, this user variable which present inside this function is not a local variable because it is not defined with the var keyword. Now this variable user will become the global variable, so I can change the value of this inside this function. So I'm changing the value to Tom. Now show username, and I'm alerting the user. First let me create. Okay, let me go back. So what I'll do right now is first I'll call this function create username. Okay, once I've done that, the user variable will have a value called Sham. Okay, now I'll call this show username function to Control S. Let me go back and let me refresh. We'll get the output as Sham right now. Okay, let me go back here. Okay, this is what. Now what I'll do is I'll call this modify username. When I call that modify username function, what it is going to do is it's going to change the value of the user variable present inside this function. So the value of Sham will be changed to Tom. So let me call that modify username, and now let me call the show username, which is just going to pop up the value present in that variable. Control S. Now you can observe, Control F5, the value, currently the value is Sham, now the value is changed to Tom. Okay, how did it happen? Since this variable is present inside the function, and keep in mind this variable is not defined with the var keyword. If I define this variable with the var keyword, and one can't change the value of this user variable, because this user variable is locally accessible only within this function, not outside the function. But if I define like this, then this user variable is accessible anywhere within the script tag. Okay, this is what the meaning of this slide present over here. Like, the variables declared inside a function without a var keyword, and that variables also become the global variables, and they can be accessed anywhere within the script tag. That's what you meant like global scope. And also we learned the other example of how to define a global scope, global variables. And that's for the day. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel Ankpro Training. You can also like our Facebook page visiting this URL. You can also follow us on Twitter. For further reference, refer our websites. We're on LinkedIn too. Last but not the least, please don't forget to give the feedback. Thank you. Have a great day.